On May 15, 1996, 8 second graders from Millbrook Elementary boarded a yellow school bus for a field trip to the County Nature Center. The bus never arrived. No wreckage was found. No witnesses came forward. The children, ages 7 and 8, simply vanished along with their teacher. For 15 years, their families grieved what everyone believed was a tragic accident somewhere on those winding country roads. Then, in 2011, contractors renovating the old Millbrook Elementary building discovered something impossible behind a false wall in the basement. A classroom. Frozen in time. 8 small desks still arranged in neat rows, backpacks still hanging on hooks, children's artwork still pinned to bulletin boards. And in the cubbies along the wall, tiny jackets and sneakers with name tags still attached as if the children had just stepped out for recess. On the teacher's desk lay a handwritten letter. The ink faded, but the words still legible. He's going to kill us all. If someone finds this, please tell their families the truth. We never left the school. What they discovered forced police to reopen a case buried for 15 years and expose a conspiracy that had turned 8 innocent children into ghosts while their families mourned a lie. The news van pulled into the gravel lot outside Millbrook Elementary at 6:43 a.m., headlights cutting through the morning fog that clung to abandoned swing sets like old grief. Lisa Brennan sat in her Honda Civic across the street, coffee gone cold in her lap, watching reporters set up their cameras in front of the school where her daughter Sophie had supposedly climbed onto a bus 15 years ago. She'd been awake since 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, replaying the news anchor's words from the night before. Contractors renovating the old elementary school made a disturbing discovery behind a basement wall. They hadn't said what kind of discovery, just that police were investigating and the building was now a crime scene. Lisa's hands trembled as she gripped the steering wheel. The same wheel she'd clutched in 1996, driving these same roads for weeks, searching ditches and tree lines for any trace of that yellow school bus. Her phone buzzed. Text from her sister. "Saw the news. You okay?" She wasn't okay. Hadn't been okay since May 15th, 1996, when she'd waited in this same parking lot for a bus that never came home. Sophie had been 7, second grade, gap-toothed smile and pigtails that never stayed straight. She'd packed her own lunch that morning, peanut butter sandwich, apple slices, string cheese, and bounced out the door wearing her favorite purple sneakers with the silver laces. "Field trip today, Mama. We're going to see baby deer." Those were the last words Lisa ever heard her daughter speak. The reporter's voice drifted across the empty lot as they tested the microphone. 15-year-old mystery may finally have answers. Lisa pushed open her car door. Her legs felt unsteady on the cracked asphalt, but she forced herself forward. She needed to know what they'd found behind that wall. A sheriff's deputy tried to wave her back as she approached the school's front steps. "Ma'am, this is an active crime scene. Media only beyond this point." Lisa pulled out her wallet, fingers shaking, as she found the old photo tucked behind her driver's license. Sophie's school picture from second grade. Crooked smile, missing front tooth, eyes bright with 7-year-old mischief. "My daughter was on that bus," she said, voice raw from a sleepless night. Sophie Brennan. She was supposed to come home from this school 15 years ago. The deputy's expression softened. He looked at the photo, then back at Lisa's face. Older now, lined with years of grief, but the same desperate hope that had driven her to search empty fields and ask the same questions over and over. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to wait here while I get the sheriff. He's going to want to talk to you." Sheriff Tom Valdez emerged from the school 20 minutes later, work boots heavy on the concrete steps. He was older than Lisa remembered, grayer, thicker around the middle, but she recognized him from 1996. He'd been the young deputy then, the one who'd taken her statement when Sophie didn't come home. "Mrs. Brennan." His voice was quiet, careful. "I figured you'd show up once this hit the news." Lisa searched his face for answers. "What did you find in there, Tom?" He glanced back at the school, then at the reporters setting up their equipment. "Not here. Come with me." He led her to his patrol car, away from the cameras and microphones. They sat in the front seat with the engine running, heat blasting against the morning chill. "Tom, please, I've been waiting 15 years. I need to know." He was quiet for a long moment, hands resting on the steering wheel. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "We found a classroom, Lisa, hidden behind a false wall in the basement. Desks, backpacks, children's clothes. Everything exactly like it was left in 1996. Lisa's breath caught in her throat. "That's impossible. They got on the bus. I watched them line up. I know what you saw. I know what we all believed. But there's evidence down there that suggests—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "That suggests they never left the building." The words hit her like a physical blow. Lisa doubled over, pressing her hands to her stomach as 15 years of grief and guilt crashed over her. "You're saying Sophie died here, in her own school?" "I'm saying we're reopening the investigation. There are things down there, evidence, that changes everything we thought we knew about that day." Lisa straightened up, wiping tears from her cheeks with the back of her hand. "I want to see it. Lisa, I want to see where my daughter died." Tom's jaw tightened. "It's a crime scene. I can't just—" "You owe me this." Her voice was steel now, forged from 15 years of unanswered questions. "You all told me she was gone, that there was nothing more you could do. You closed the case and moved on with your lives while I kept searching empty roads." She pulled out her phone, thumb hovering over the local reporter's number she'd memorized years ago. "I can call Channel 7 right now. Tell them the sheriff won't let the victim's mother see evidence that proves her daughter never left the school. Or you can walk me down there yourself." Tom stared at her for a long moment. Then he reached for his radio. "This is Sheriff Valdez. I need the basement cleared for 10 minutes. Family member needs to see the scene." 20 minutes later, Lisa Brennan stood at the threshold of her daughter's tomb. The classroom was exactly as Tom had described, frozen in time, preserved behind concrete, and lies. 8 small desks arranged in perfect rows, a chalkboard with May 15, 1996 still written in faded white chalk. Bulletin boards covered in Mother's Day cards that were never delivered. But it was the cubbies along the wall that broke her. 8 tiny compartments with names written in cheerful marker. Katie, Michael, Emily, Ethan, Megan, Tyler, Jessica. And in the corner, Sophie. Lisa's legs gave out. She sank to her knees in front of her daughter's cubby, reaching out with trembling fingers to touch the purple sneakers with silver laces that sat on the bottom shelf. The sneakers Sophie had been wearing when she kissed Lisa goodbye that morning. "She never left," Lisa whispered, the words echoing in the underground tomb. "She was here the whole time." On the shelf above the shoes, folded neatly, was Sophie's favorite sweater, the pink one with tiny flowers that Lisa had knitted herself. And tucked behind it, a small slip of paper. Lisa unfolded it with shaking hands. In Sophie's careful second-grade handwriting, "Tell Mama I love her. Tell her I'm sorry I couldn't come home." Lisa's scream echoed off the concrete walls. 15 years of grief and rage and heartbreak pouring out of her in a sound that made Tom Valdez step back toward the stairs. When she finally stopped screaming, she looked up at him with eyes that burned. "Find who did this to them. Find him and make him pay." Tom nodded, his own voice thick with emotion he'd kept buried since 1996. "We will, Lisa. I promise you, we will." But as they climbed the stairs back to daylight, neither of them noticed the figure watching from the tree line. A man who'd thought this secret was buried forever, now realizing his carefully constructed lie was about to crumble. David Crane crushed his cigarette under his heel and walked back to his car, mind already racing through options he'd hoped never to consider again. The children were supposed to stay buried. Now someone was going to pay for digging them up. The forensics team arrived at Millbrook Elementary like a small army. White vans, evidence bags, cameras that flashed against the basement walls like lightning trapped underground. Lisa sat in the school parking lot, refusing to leave. She'd been there for 6 hours, watching investigators carry box after box of evidence up from the basement. Her daughter's sneakers, her sweater, 8 backpacks that should have gone home 15 years ago. Sheriff Tom Valdez found her sitting on the hood of her Honda at sunset, staring at the school's dark windows. "You need to go home, Lisa. Get some rest." She didn't look at him. "Rest? My daughter's been dead in that basement for 15 years while I've been bringing flowers to an empty grave. You think I'm going to rest now?" Tom sat down beside her on the hood, his weight making the car creak. The coroner's preliminary report came back. No remains down there. Just belongings. Lisa's head snapped toward him. "What does that mean?" "It means they weren't killed in that room. They were moved somewhere else." For the first time in hours, Lisa felt something that might have been hope flicker in her chest. Moved where? That's what we're trying to figure out. Tom pulled out an evidence bag containing a folded piece of paper. "We found this on the teacher's desk. Letter written by Margaret Frost, their teacher." Lisa's hands shook as she read through the clear plastic. May 15th, 1996. "If someone finds this, please know we tried to run. David wouldn't let us leave. He says we know too much about what he's been doing with the children from other schools. The bus was supposed to be our escape, but he found out. He's moving us tonight. I don't know where. I'm so sorry. Tell the families their children were brave." M. Frost Lisa read it twice, the words blurring through her tears. "David? Who's David?" "David Crane. He was the principal here in 1996. Tom's voice was grim. "Retired 2 years later. Moved to Florida. We're trying to locate him now." What did she mean? What he's been doing with children from other schools? Tom was quiet for a long moment. "We're looking into that too. There might be more victims, Lisa. This might be bigger than just Sophie's class." Lisa slid off the hood, pacing in small circles around the parking lot. "Where is he now? This David Crane?" "We don't know yet. His last known address was in Clearwater, but the house was sold 3 years ago. No forwarding address." "You mean he's in the wind?" "We'll find him." Lisa stopped pacing and stared at Tom. "Will you? Because 15 years ago, you told me you'd find my daughter. You told me you'd find that bus. You told me a lot of things that turned out to be lies." Tom's face flushed. "Lisa, we did everything we could." "Did you?" Her voice rose. "Did you search the school? Did you check the basement? Did you even think to ask why 8 children and their teacher would vanish without a trace?" Tom stood up, hands raised. "We followed every lead, searched hundreds of miles of road, dragged the river twice. While my daughter was 30 feet underground in her own school." Lisa's laugh was bitter. "You want to know what I think? I think you all wanted it to be a bus accident. Nice and simple, tragic but explainable. No one had to ask hard questions about what was happening in that school." Tom opened his mouth to argue, but she cut him off. "I'm not waiting for you to find David Crane. I'm finding him myself." She started walking toward her car. "Lisa, don't do something stupid. This is a police matter now." She turned back to him, keys already in her hand. "For 15 years, it wasn't a police matter. It was just a mother going crazy, seeing conspiracies where there were only accidents. Well, guess what, Tom? I was right. There was a conspiracy. And now I'm going to find the man who killed my daughter." Tom grabbed her arm gently. "You're not thinking straight. You're angry." "Damn right I'm angry." She jerked away from him. "But I'm also the only person who never stopped looking. I know more about this case than anyone in your department because I lived it every day for 15 years. She got in her car and rolled down the window. You find David Crane your way, I'll find him mine. May the best investigator win." As she drove away, Tom pulled out his cell phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in 3 years. "Frank? It's Tom Valdez. I need your help with something. Remember that class that disappeared in '96? We just found evidence they never left the school, and the victim's mother is about to go vigilante unless we find our suspect first." Frank Holloway had been retired from detective work for 5 years, but his voice sharpened immediately. "David Crane?" Tom paused. "You know that name?" "Hell yes, I know that name. I've been tracking him for a decade. He's not just your suspect, Tom. He's connected to at least 6 other missing children cases across 3 states. Cases that were all ruled accidents or runaways. Jesus Christ. Where are you right now?" "Standing in the parking lot of Millbrook Elementary, watching the mother of one of his victims drive off to find him herself." "Then you better stop her before she gets herself killed, because David Crane didn't retire to Florida, Tom. He's been operating under a new identity for years, and if he thinks someone's getting close to the truth..." The line went quiet. "Frank? I'm driving up there tonight. Don't let that mother out of your sight. Crane's killed to keep this secret before. He won't hesitate to do it again." Tom looked at the tail lights disappearing down the county road and cursed under his breath. Lisa Brennan had 15 years of rage driving her forward, and she was walking straight into the path of a man who'd already murdered 8 children to keep his secrets buried. By the time Tom got back to his patrol car, she was already gone. But 30 miles away, in a cabin that didn't officially exist on any property records, David Crane was loading bullets into a pistol he'd hoped never to use again. He'd spent 15 years building a new life, new identity, new reputation. Now some dead teacher's letter was about to destroy it all. Unless he destroyed the people asking questions first. Lisa Brennan's kitchen counter looked like a detective's war room by midnight. Printed internet searches, old newspaper clippings, handwritten timelines, and a Florida phone book she'd bought at a gas station, all scattered around her laptop like pieces of a puzzle she'd been trying to solve for 15 years. She'd driven straight home from the school and started digging. David Crane, 67 years old in 1996, principal of Millbrook Elementary from 1989 to 1998, married to Helen Crane, divorced 1997. No children listed. The divorce records were public. Lisa had called the courthouse in Clearwater and sweet-talked a clerk into reading her the details over the phone. Irreconcilable differences. Wife filed. Says here she accused him of inappropriate conduct with minors, but no charges were ever filed. Lisa's pen had snapped in her grip. Helen Crane knew. The wife knew her husband was hurting children, and instead of going to police, she'd just divorced him and disappeared. Now Lisa was hunting for both of them. Her laptop screen glowed with property records from 6 different counties in Florida. David Crane had sold his Clearwater house in 2008 to a cash buyer. Suspicious enough. No mortgage records after that. No utility bills. No voter registration. But Helen was different. Helen had kept her maiden name after the divorce, Helen Voss, and Helen Voss had a paper trail. 3 phone numbers, 2 addresses, and a current electric bill in Gainesville. Lisa dialed the first number at 12:47 a.m. It rang 4 times before a woman's sleepy voice answered. "Hello? Helen Voss? Who is this?" Lisa's heart hammered. "My name is Lisa Brennan. My daughter Sophie was in David Crane's school when she disappeared. I need to talk to you about your ex-husband." The line went quiet for so long Lisa thought the woman had hung up. Then, barely a whisper, "He told me they'd never find them." Lisa nearly dropped the phone. "You knew?" "I suspected. For years, I suspected. Children would transfer to other schools suddenly. Parents would ask questions, then stop asking. David would come home different on those days. Excited. Wrong kind of excited." "Why didn't you go to the police?" Helen's laugh was bitter. "With what? Suspicions? Bad feelings?" He was careful, always careful, and he had friends in the department, people who owed him favors. Lisa grabbed a pen. What kind of friends? The sheriff back then, Jim Morrison, they went to high school together, played poker every Thursday night, and there was someone else, someone David called when things got complicated. Who? I don't know his real name. David just called him the cleaner, said he helped with problems that couldn't be handled through normal channels. Lisa's blood ran cold. Are you saying David had help? Someone who helped him hide bodies? I'm saying my ex-husband didn't work alone, and if you're calling me at 1 a.m. asking questions about missing children, that means someone found evidence he thought was buried forever. They found the classroom, Helen, hidden behind a wall in the school basement, with all the children's belongings still there. Helen was crying now, soft, guilty sobs that she'd probably been holding back for 15 years. I should have done something. I should have stopped him. You can stop him now? Where is he? I don't know. After the divorce, he disappeared. Changed his name, I think. The alimony checks came from a law firm, but they stopped coming 3 years ago. Lisa wrote down the law firm's name and address. What about this cleaner person? Any way to find him? Dead. Car accident in 2003. Very convenient timing, if you ask me. Lisa's head was spinning. A conspiracy. Multiple people. Cover-ups that went all the way to the sheriff's department. Helen, I need you to meet with me. I need you to tell the police everything you just told me. I can't. I'm sorry, but I can't. If David finds out I talked to you, he's going to find out anyway. The story's already on the news. It's only a matter of time before reporters start calling you too. The line went quiet again. There's something else, Helen finally said. Something I never told anyone. Lisa held her breath. David kept trophies, little things from each child. Hair ribbons, toy cars, pieces of jewelry. He had a box hidden in his home office. If you could find that box, where would he keep it now? I don't know, but David was sentimental about his work. He wouldn't throw those things away. They meant too much to him. After Helen hung up, Lisa sat in her kitchen, staring at the notes she'd scribbled during the call. A box of trophies, share of corruption, multiple victims across years. Her phone rang at 1:23 a.m., unknown number. Hello? Heavy breathing. Then a voice she didn't recognize. Older, gravelly, mean. You should stop asking questions about things that don't concern you. Lisa's hand tightened on the phone. Who is this? Someone who's been watching you drive around town all day, making phone calls, stirring up trouble that was buried for good reason. David Crane? A low chuckle. David's not available right now, but I am, and I'm telling you once, drop this. Go home. Forget what you found in that basement. Go to hell. Your daughter's been dead for 15 years, lady. Nothing you do now is going to bring her back, but keep pushing and you're going to join her. The line went dead. Lisa stared at the phone, hands shaking with rage instead of fear. Someone was watching her. Someone knew she'd been making calls. She looked out her kitchen window at the empty street, searching the shadows between streetlights for movement. Nothing. But as she turned back to her laptop, she noticed something that made her blood turn to ice. Her front door was unlocked. She always locked her front door, had locked it when she came home from the school. She was certain. Lisa crept toward the living room, phone in one hand, kitchen knife in the other. The door was definitely unlocked, and on her coffee table, placed carefully next to her car keys, was something that hadn't been there when she left. A small purple hair ribbon, the same kind Sophie used to wear in her pigtails. Lisa's scream cut through the night silence, and 3 blocks away, David Crane smiled as he listened through the wireless microphone he'd planted under her kitchen table. The grieving mother wanted to play detective. Fine, but she was about to learn that some cases were better left unsolved. Lisa didn't sleep. She sat at her kitchen table with every light in the house blazing, the purple hair ribbon in a plastic sandwich bag in front of her, and a baseball bat across her knees. The ribbon wasn't Sophie's, she was sure of that. Sophie's ribbons had been silk, bought at the fancy store downtown. This one was cheap polyester, the kind sold at drugstores in multi-packs, but it was the right shade of purple, and it had been placed on her coffee table like a calling card. David Crane had been in her house. At 5:47 a.m., she called Sheriff Valdez. "Tom, he was here, in my house. He left something." Tom's voice was groggy but instantly alert. Who was here? David Crane, or someone working for him. They left a purple hair ribbon on my coffee table and called to threaten me. Jesus Christ, Lisa, I told you not to go looking for him yourself. Well, apparently he found me first. Lisa stared at the ribbon through the plastic. I think this belonged to one of his other victims. Helen said he kept trophies. Helen? Helen Voss, his ex-wife. I called her last night. Tom was quiet for a moment. Lisa, you need to pack a bag and get out of that house. Come stay at the station until we can figure this out. I'm not running from him. You're not equipped to handle this. This isn't some grief counseling group or missing persons support network. This is a man who's killed children and gotten away with it for 15 years. Lisa looked around her kitchen, at the timeline she'd built, the phone numbers she'd collected, the evidence she'd gathered in one night that the police hadn't found in 15 years. Maybe I'm more equipped than you think. She hung up before Tom could argue. By 7 a.m., she was dressed and driving toward Gainesville. Helen Voss had given her the name of the law firm that used to send David's alimony checks, Brenner, Kyle, and Associates. If they'd handled his money, they might know where he was now. The drive took 3 hours. Lisa spent them thinking about the phone call, the unlocked door, the ribbon. David Crane wanted her scared, wanted her to back off, which meant she was getting close to something he didn't want found. Brenner, Kyle, and Associates occupied half a floor in a glass office building downtown. Lisa walked into the lobby wearing her best dress and her most convincing smile. I'm here about the Crane account, she told the receptionist. I'm with the insurance company handling his life insurance claim. It was a lie, but it worked. 5 minutes later, she was sitting across from Martin Kyle, a thin man in his 50s who kept checking his watch like he had somewhere more important to be. I'm sorry, but David Crane closed his account with us in 2008. We haven't had any contact with him since. Lisa pulled out a fake business card she'd made at Kinko's that morning. Mr. Kyle, I'm sure you understand the sensitive nature of life insurance investigations. We have reason to believe Mr. Crane may have faked his own death to avoid certain legal complications. Kyle's expression sharpened. What kind of legal complications? The kind involving missing children. Kyle was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. Then he closed the folder on his desk and leaned forward. You're not with an insurance company? Lisa met his stare. No, I'm not. You're the mother, the one from the news. My daughter Sophie was 7 years old when David Crane murdered her, along with 7 other children and their teacher. I found your firm's name in his ex-wife's divorce records. Kyle stood up and walked to his office window, hands clasped behind his back. David Crane was a client for exactly 3 years. He paid us to handle alimony payments and some basic legal work. Nothing criminal. But, Kyle turned around. But he gave me the creeps. There was something wrong about him. The way he talked about children, the way he smiled when certain news stories came on TV. Lisa's pulse quickened. What kind of news stories? Missing kids, Amber Alerts. He'd watch them with this expression, like he was remembering something pleasant. Did he ever mention other children? Other schools? Once, he said something about solving problems for other districts. When kids became troublesome, he knew how to handle it quietly. Lisa pulled out her notebook. Did he give you any forwarding address when he closed the account? No, but he left something in our safe deposit box. Said if anyone ever came looking for him, we should give it to them. Lisa's heart nearly stopped. You have something from him? Kyle walked to a filing cabinet and pulled out a sealed envelope. He said, and I quote, "If any grieving parents show up asking questions, this will explain everything." He handed her the envelope. Her name was written on the front in careful block letters. Lisa Brennan. Lisa's hand shook as she tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a small brass key. The letter was typed, "Mrs. Brennan, if you're reading this, it means you found the classroom. Congratulations. You're more persistent than I expected. You want to know where your daughter is. You want to know what happened to all of them. The key will show you. Storage Unit 89, Cedar Ridge Storage, Highway 301 North. The answers you've been looking for are waiting. But be warned, some truths are worse than ignorance. Some doors should never be opened. Your daughter suffered. They all suffered. Because of you. Because parents like you refuse to see what your children really were, refuse to accept that some kids are born wrong, born bad. I fixed them. I saved the world from what they would have become. Come alone or don't come at all. D.C. Lisa read the letter twice, her vision blurring with rage. Martin Kyle watched her carefully. What does it say? Lisa folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. It says David Crane is still playing games. She stood up, clutching the key so tightly it cut into her palm. Mrs. Brennan, maybe you should call the police before you... Thank you for your help, Mr. Kyle. Lisa walked out of the office, down the elevator, and straight to her car. Cedar Ridge Storage was 20 minutes away. As she drove, she called Tom Valdez and left a voicemail. Tom, it's Lisa. I found where he's been hiding evidence. Storage Unit 89, Cedar Ridge Storage on Highway 301. If something happens to me, that's where you'll find the answers. She didn't tell him she was going there alone. She didn't tell him about the part of the letter that made her stomach twist with dread. Your daughter suffered. And she didn't tell him that despite everything, the threats, the break-in, the sick game David Crane was playing, she was going to open that storage unit. Because after 15 years of not knowing, even the worst truth was better than the emptiness that had been eating her alive. Cedar Ridge Storage appeared ahead on the right, a sprawling complex of beige metal buildings surrounded by chain-link fence. Lisa pulled into the parking lot and sat there for a moment, staring at the key in her palm. Unit 89. Whatever was waiting inside that metal box had been there for years, hidden by a man who murdered children and called it mercy. But it was also the last connection she'd ever have to Sophie. Lisa got out of the car and walked toward the storage units, the key cutting deeper into her palm with every step. Behind her, hidden in the tree line, David Crane watched through binoculars and smiled. The grieving mother was about to get exactly what she'd asked for. The lock on Unit 89 was old and rusted, but the key turned easily, like it had been used recently. Lisa's hands trembled as she gripped the metal handle and pulled the door up. It rolled open with a screech that echoed through the empty storage facility. Inside was darkness that smelled of cardboard and something else, something sweet and sick that made her stomach lurch. She fumbled for her phone's flashlight. The beam cut through the shadows, revealing stacks of bankers' boxes lined up against the walls like tombstones. Each box had a label written in the same careful block letters as the envelope. Sarah M., 1994. Tommy K., 1995. Jessica R., 1997. Lisa's breath caught. These weren't just Sophie's classmates. This went back years, decades. She moved deeper into the unit, phone light dancing across the labels. 23 boxes total, 23 children. The box labeled Sophie B., 1996, sat on a metal shelf at eye level, positioned like David Crane knew she'd come looking for it first. Lisa pulled it down with shaking hands. The cardboard was heavier than expected, dense with whatever memories David Crane had preserved of her daughter's final moments. She sat on the concrete floor and opened the lid. On top was a school photo, Sophie's second-grade picture, the same one Lisa carried in her wallet, but this copy had been altered. Someone had drawn red X's over Sophie's eyes in crayon. Beneath the photo, a small cassette tape labeled May 15th, 1996, Final Interview. Lisa's heart hammered as she dug deeper. Sophie's purple hair ribbon, the real one, silk, expensive. A piece of her favorite sweater, cut clean like a fabric sample. And at the bottom, wrapped in tissue paper, something that made Lisa's world tilt sideways. Sophie's bracelet. The silver one with tiny charms that Lisa had given her for her 7th birthday just 2 months before she disappeared. But the charms were wrong. The little heart was gone. The star was gone. Only one charm remained, a tiny skull that definitely hadn't been there before. Lisa dropped the bracelet like it was on fire. Her hand shook as she reached for the cassette tape. She didn't have a player with her, but across the aisle she spotted an old boombox sitting on top of another stack of boxes. The tape clicked into place. Static hissed through the speakers. Then Sophie's voice, thin, scared, but unmistakably her baby girl. "Please, Mr. Crane, I want to go home. I want my mama." David Crane's voice, calm and patient like he was explaining homework. "Tell me again, Sophie. What did you see Miss Frost doing in my office?" "She was looking at your computer. She said bad words when she saw something." "What kind of bad words?" She said you were selling kids. She said she was going to tell the police." A long pause, then Sophie again, smaller. "Are you going to sell me too?" Lisa's scream echoed through the storage unit. She punched the stop button so hard the boombox nearly fell over, but she could still hear her daughter's voice in her head. "Are you going to sell me too?" Behind her, footsteps crunched on gravel. Lisa spun around, phone light cutting through the darkness. David Crane stood in the doorway of the storage unit, older than his photos, grayer, but with the same cold eyes that had probably been the last thing Sophie ever saw. "I wondered how long it would take you to get here," he said, stepping into the unit. 15 years of searching, and you finally found what you were looking for." Lisa scrambled backward, pressing against the far wall. "You bastard! You sick, twisted bastard!" Crane smiled, the same patient smile he'd probably used on terrified children for decades. "I saved them, Lisa. All of them. Do you know what your perfect little daughter was going to become? She was 7 years old. She was a liar, a manipulator. I could see it in her eyes during parent conferences. The way she played you and her father against each other. The way she got other children to do things for her." Lisa's hand closed around a rusty screwdriver she spotted on the floor. "You're insane." "I'm a visionary. Some children are born corrupt, Lisa. Born with darkness inside them that grows and spreads if it's not stopped. I stopped it." He gestured to the boxes lining the walls. 23 future murderers, rapists, politicians, 23 plagues I prevented from infecting the world. Lisa gripped the screwdriver tighter. "Where are they? Where are the bodies?" Crane's smile widened. "Bodies? Oh, Lisa, you still don't understand." He pulled out his cell phone and played a video. The screen showed a young woman, maybe 22, 23, working behind the counter of a coffee shop. She had Sophie's eyes, Sophie's smile. Lisa's knees buckled. That's not possible." "Your daughter is very much alive, Lisa, living in Oregon under the name Sarah Collins, married to a nice accountant, pregnant with her first child." The screwdriver fell from Lisa's numb fingers. "You're lying." "She doesn't remember you, of course. Trauma therapy can be very effective when applied correctly. As far as she knows, her parents died in a car accident when she was young. She was raised by loving adoptive parents who understood her. Special needs." Crane scrolled through more photos on his phone. "Would you like to see the others? Tommy runs an auto repair shop in Colorado. Jessica is a nurse in Seattle. All productive members of society, thanks to my intervention." Lisa stared at the video of the young woman who looked like Sophie, moved like Sophie, smiled like Sophie. "I don't believe you." "Call this number." Crane held up a business card. "Grind Coffee, downtown Portland. Ask for Sarah Collins. Tell her you're planning a family reunion for the Brennan family. See what she says." Lisa's world was fracturing. 15 years of grief. 15 years of visiting an empty grave. 15 years of believing her daughter was dead. "Why?" she whispered. "Why let me think she was dead?" Because you were a terrible mother, Lisa. You spoiled her, enabled her worst instincts. She needed structure, discipline, a fresh start without the weakness you represented. Rage flooded through Lisa like liquid fire. She lunged for the screwdriver, but Crane was faster, his hand clamped around her wrist. Careful, Lisa. We wouldn't want Sarah to become an orphan all over again. He twisted her wrist until she dropped the tool. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to call Sheriff Valdez. You're going to tell him you made a mistake, that you found nothing in this storage unit but old school records. Go to hell. Crane's grip tightened. Or I make one phone call and Sarah Collins dies in a tragic home invasion, along with her husband and their unborn child. Lisa stared into his cold eyes and saw the truth. He would do it, without hesitation, without remorse. You have 24 hours to convince the police this was all a wild goose chase, Crane continued. 24 hours to make this investigation disappear, or your daughter, and all the other children I've placed in loving homes, will disappear for real this time. He released her wrist and stepped back toward the doorway. Oh, and Lisa? Don't try to contact any of them directly. I have people watching all of my success stories, people who report back to me. Lisa slumped against the wall, staring at the boxes of evidence that proved her daughter was alive, but lost to her forever. Why tell me this? Why not just let me believe she was dead? Crane paused in the doorway. Because dead martyrs inspire crusades. Living ghosts inspire silence. He walked away, leaving Lisa alone in the storage unit with 23 boxes of stolen childhoods and the crushing weight of an impossible choice. Save her daughter by burying the truth, or expose the truth and lose her daughter forever. Outside, gravel crunched as Crane's car started up and drove away. Lisa sat on the concrete floor, surrounded by evidence of the most successful child trafficking operation in American history, and wept for a daughter who was alive, but might as well be dead. Her phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. The message contained a single photo. Sophie, or Sarah, laughing at something off camera, one hand resting protectively on her pregnant belly. Below the photo, 23 hours and 56 minutes remaining. Lisa sat in her car outside Cedar Ridge Storage for 2 hours, staring at the photo on her phone. Sophie, Sarah, pregnant and smiling in a coffee shop 3,000 miles away, living a life built on lies and stolen memories. Every maternal instinct screamed at her to drive to the airport, fly to Portland, find her daughter and hold her and never let go. But David Crane's threat echoed in her head. I have people watching all of my success stories. Lisa's phone rang. Sheriff Valdez. Lisa, I got your message about the storage unit. Where the hell are you? She could tell him everything. Show him the boxes, the cassette tapes, the evidence of 23 stolen children. Let him handle David Crane through official channels and watch her daughter die for it. I'm at the storage facility, she said, voice hollow. Tom, I think I made a mistake. What kind of mistake? Lisa closed her eyes. I think grief made me see conspiracies where there weren't any. The storage unit? It's just old school records, attendance sheets, report cards, nothing criminal. Silence on the other end. Then, Lisa, that doesn't sound like you. 15 years of hoping for answers will make you desperate enough to see patterns that aren't there. What about the classroom? The teacher's letter. Lisa's grip tightened on the phone. Every word felt like swallowing glass. Maybe Margaret Frost was confused, scared. Maybe she wrote that letter thinking David Crane was involved when really they were just hiding from whoever actually took them. Lisa, I'm tired, Tom. I'm tired of chasing ghosts. Maybe it's time to let Sophie rest in peace. After she hung up, Lisa drove home in a daze. 23 hours and counting. She could call the Portland police, warn them about Sarah Collins, but Crane would know. Somehow, he'd know, and Sarah would pay the price. She could drive to Oregon herself. But then what? Tell a pregnant woman that her entire life was a lie? That the parents who raised her were part of a child trafficking ring? That her real mother had been searching for her for 15 years? Sarah would think she was insane, probably call the police, and Crane would eliminate the threat. Lisa paced her living room, mind racing through impossible scenarios. Her laptop sat open on the kitchen table, browser still showing property records and missing persons reports. 15 years of research, hundreds of hours of detective work that had finally paid off. And now she had to throw it all away. Or did she? Lisa grabbed her phone and dialed a number she'd found in Helen Voss's divorce records. Brenner, Kyle and Associates, this is Martin Kyle. Mr. Kyle, it's Lisa Brennan. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Mrs. Brennan, are you all right? You sound... When David Crane left that envelope for me, did he leave anything else? Any other instructions? Kyle hesitated. Why would you ask that? Because I think he's still playing games. I think he knew exactly what I'd find in that storage unit, and I think he's counting on me to react in a specific way. Mrs. Brennan, I'm not sure I should... My daughter is alive. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. David Crane didn't kill those children. He trafficked them, gave them new identities, placed them with families, erased their memories. And now he's using them as leverage to keep me quiet. Kyle was silent for a long moment. Jesus Christ. So I need to know, did he leave any other instructions? Any backup plans? He... Kyle's voice dropped to a whisper. He left a second envelope, said if the first one didn't work, if you kept pushing, I should give you the second one. Lisa's heart raced. What's in it? I don't know. It's sealed, but he said it contained insurance that would guarantee your cooperation. I need that envelope. Mrs. Brennan, maybe you should involve the FBI. This sounds like... He has people watching my daughter and 22 other victims. If I involve federal authorities, he'll know, and innocent people will die. Lisa checked the time on her phone. 21 hours remaining. I'm driving back to Gainesville. Have that envelope ready. The second envelope was thicker than the first. Lisa's name was written on the front in the same block letters, but underneath, in smaller text, Final Warning. She didn't open it until she was back in her car, hands shaking as she tore the seal. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Sarah Collins, Sophie, at home, at work, walking to her car, shopping for baby clothes. But these weren't surveillance photos taken from a distance. These were intimate shots. Sarah laughing with her husband, Sarah reading in bed, Sarah stepping out of the shower. Someone had been inside her house, inside her life. The final photo showed Sarah sleeping, one hand resting on her pregnant belly. A man's shadow fell across the bed, someone standing over her, close enough to touch. Below the photos, a handwritten note. Lisa. By now you understand the situation. Your daughter lives because I allow it. The 22 others live because I allow it. But my generosity has limits. You have 18 hours to convince Sheriff Valdez to officially close the Millbrook Elementary case. Convince him the classroom was a hoax. Convince him Margaret Frost's letter was fake. Fail, and Sarah Collins will die in her sleep tonight, along with her husband. The baby will be cut from her womb and sold to the highest bidder. This is not a negotiation. This is not a threat. This is a promise. Choose wisely. DCPS. Don't bother trying to warn her. She won't believe you. And my people have been part of her life for years. Her best friend, her mailman, her obstetrician. We are everywhere. Lisa dropped the photos, bile rising in her throat. David Crane hadn't just stolen 23 children 15 years ago. He'd built an empire around them, placed them in homes where they could be monitored, controlled, eliminated if necessary. And now he was using that empire to protect himself. Lisa's phone buzzed. Text message from Tom Valdez. Lisa, I need you to come to the station. The FBI wants to talk to you about the Millbrook case. Her blood turned to ice. The FBI, federal involvement, meant publicity, media attention. Exactly what Crane was threatening to kill Sarah over. Lisa typed back, "Can't make it today. Still processing everything. Need more time." Tom's response came immediately. "Lisa, this isn't optional. They're opening a federal investigation into David Crane. They need your statement. 17 hours and 43 minutes. Lisa stared at the photo of Sarah sleeping, vulnerable and unaware that her entire existence was a lie built by a monster. She could drive to the police station. Tell the FBI everything, give them the evidence from the storage unit, and let them build an airtight case against David Crane, and watch her daughter die for it, or she could lie. Tell them she'd been mistaken. That grief had made her see patterns that weren't there. Save Sophie's life and let 22 other victims remain trapped in their stolen identities forever. Lisa started her car and began driving toward the police station, still not knowing which choice she was going to make. But as she drove, she realized there might be a third option, one that would require her to become exactly the kind of person David Crane thought she was. The kind of person who would do anything, absolutely anything, to protect her child. The FBI field office in Jacksonville was a sterile maze of fluorescent lights and beige cubicles that smelled like burnt coffee and bureaucratic exhaustion. Special Agent Rebecca Torres met Lisa in a conference room with glass walls and recording equipment that looked like it could pick up a whisper from 3 counties away. "Mrs. Brennan, thank you for coming in. I know this has been a difficult time." Lisa sat across from her, hands folded in her lap to hide the trembling. 16 hours and 12 minutes remaining. "I understand you've been investigating your daughter's disappearance independently," Torres continued. "We'd like to hear about any evidence you've uncovered." This was it. The moment Lisa had dreamed about for 15 years, federal agents taking her seriously, ready to pursue justice for Sophie and the other children. All she had to do was tell the truth and sign her daughter's death warrant. "Agent Torres, I appreciate the FBI's interest, but I think there's been a misunderstanding." Torres raised an eyebrow. "What kind of misunderstanding?" Lisa pulled out her phone and scrolled to a photo she'd taken of the storage unit, but not the boxes inside, just empty concrete walls and dust. "I spent yesterday chasing what I thought was evidence, following leads that seemed to point to David Crane, the former principal. But when I actually investigated..." She let her voice trail off, injecting just the right amount of disappointment and embarrassment. "What did you find?" "Nothing. Old school supplies, abandoned furniture. I think 15 years of grief made me see conspiracies where there were only coincidences." Agent Torres leaned forward. "Mrs. Brennan, Sheriff Valdez told us about the hidden classroom, the teacher's letter naming David Crane specifically." Lisa met her eyes steadily. Margaret Frost was terrified, probably confused. She might have written that letter thinking Principal Crane was involved, when really she was hiding from whoever actually took the children. "And the storage unit? The evidence you mentioned to Sheriff Valdez?" "Empty. Just old records that proved nothing except that I was desperate enough to break into private property looking for answers that don't exist." Torres studied Lisa's face with the practiced eye of someone trained to spot deception. "Mrs. Brennan, with all due respect, this doesn't sound like the same woman who's been advocating for her missing daughter for 15 years. Lisa's phone buzzed under the table. Text message from unknown number, 14 hours. 57 minutes. "Your daughter is making dinner for her husband right now, pasta with red sauce. She's humming while she cooks. How long has it been since you hummed while cooking, Lisa?" Lisa's stomach clenched, but she kept her voice steady. "Maybe that's because I finally realize it's time to let go. Sophie's been gone for 15 years. She's not coming back. And David Crane is a 78-year-old retiree who probably can't remember what he had for breakfast, much less orchestrate some elaborate cover-up." "Mrs. Brennan." "Agent Torres, I made a mistake. I let hope and desperation cloud my judgment. I'm sorry I wasted your time." Lisa stood up, but Torres gestured for her to sit back down. I'm afraid I can't let you leave just yet. Lisa's heart hammered. Am I under arrest? No, but we have reason to believe David Crane is more than just a confused old man. Torres opened a thick file folder and spread photographs across the table. Missing children from 6 different states, spanning 25 years. All between the ages of 6 and 9. All disappeared from schools where David Crane had worked as principal or administrator. 17 children, Mrs. Brennan, all vanished under similar circumstances. All from schools under David Crane's supervision. Lisa stared at the photos, recognizing some faces from the storage unit boxes. Her throat felt like sandpaper. That could be coincidence. Could be, except we found this. Torres slid another photograph across the table. David Crane, much younger, standing next to a man Lisa didn't recognize outside a building with a sign, Loving Homes, Adoption Services. Adoption agency shut down in 2003 for falsifying documents and selling children to unvetted families. David Crane was listed as a child evaluation consultant on their payroll from 1994 to 2001. Lisa's hands went numb. The adoption angle, the new identities. It was all true, and the FBI was already connecting the pieces. Her phone buzzed again. 13 hours, 41 minutes. Sarah just felt the baby kick. She called her husband over to feel it too. They're laughing. They're happy. For now. Mrs. Brennan, we believe David Crane was identifying vulnerable or problematic children in schools, then arranging for them to disappear. The children were processed through illegal adoption networks and placed with families under false identities. Torres leaned across the table. We think your daughter is still alive. The words Lisa had dreamed of hearing for 15 years now felt like a knife twisting in her chest. That's not possible. It is possible, and if you help us build a case against David Crane, we can find her. We can find all of them. Lisa's phone buzzed a third time. Don't even think about it. She looked up at Agent Torres, this competent federal investigator who could probably dismantle Crane's entire operation within weeks. All Lisa had to do was tell her about the storage unit, show her the cassette tapes, give her David Crane's current location, and watch Sarah Collins die for it. Agent Torres, I want to help you. I really do, but I don't have any evidence that David Crane committed crimes. What about the storage unit? Empty? The classroom? Proves nothing about David Crane specifically. Torres gathered up the photographs and closed the file folder. Mrs. Brennan, I'm going to be blunt. We're going to investigate David Crane with or without your cooperation, but it would be a lot easier and a lot faster if you told us what you really know. Lisa stood up again. I've told you everything. Have you? They stared at each other across the conference table. Agent Torres, trained investigator with the full resources of the federal government behind her. Lisa Brennan, desperate mother with 13 hours and 38 minutes to save her daughter's life. Yes, Lisa said. I have. Torres nodded slowly. All right, Mrs. Brennan, you're free to go. But if you remember anything at all, please call me immediately. She handed Lisa a business card. Lisa walked out of the FBI building into the afternoon sunlight, card crumpled in her sweaty palm. As she got in her car, her phone rang. David Crane. Clever performance, Lisa. Very convincing. Go to hell. The FBI will keep investigating, of course, but without your evidence, without your testimony, it'll take them months to build a case. Maybe years. What do you want from me? I want you to disappear, Lisa. Sell your house. Move away. Start over somewhere else. Let this sleeping dog lie. And if I don't? Sarah Collins is making brownies now for her husband's birthday tomorrow. She's so excited about becoming a mother. It would be a shame if she never got the chance. The line went dead. Lisa sat in the FBI parking lot, surrounded by federal agents who could bring David Crane to justice, holding evidence that could free 23 stolen children. 13 hours and 34 minutes. She started her car and drove away from the one place that could have saved her daughter, because sometimes saving someone means choosing not to save everyone else. But as she drove, Lisa realized she'd made a critical mistake in her performance for Agent Torres. She'd convinced the FBI that David Crane was just a confused old man, but she'd also given them 17 missing children cases that would keep them digging. And David Crane wasn't going to like that. Her phone buzzed. "You disappointed me, Lisa. Now Sarah pays the price." The photo that followed showed Sarah Collins collapsed on her kitchen floor, brownies burning in the oven, her pregnant belly still and motionless. Lisa's tires screamed as she yanked the wheel hard right, heading for the interstate. Portland was 28 hours away if she drove straight through. She had maybe 6 hours before Sarah Collins died. And she finally understood what David Crane had been planning all along. He'd never intended to let Sarah live. He'd just been using her as bait to draw Lisa away from the FBI investigation. Now that Lisa had served her purpose, both mother and daughter were expendable. Lisa floored the accelerator and reached for her phone. Time to make the call that would either save her daughter or get them both killed. Lisa's hands shook as she dialed 911, doing 90 miles an hour on I-75 North. 911, what's your emergency? I need to report an attempted murder in Portland, Oregon. A pregnant woman named Sarah Collins is in immediate danger at... Lisa realized she didn't have Sarah's home address. Shit, I don't know the exact address. Ma'am, slow down. Are you witnessing a crime in progress? No, I'm in Florida, but I have credible information that Sarah Collins, who works at Grind Coffee in downtown Portland, is being targeted by a man named David Crane. Ma'am, I'm going to transfer you to... Lisa hung up. The 911 operator would file a report that might reach Portland police in hours. Sarah didn't have hours. She dialed directory assistance. Portland, Oregon, Grind Coffee, downtown location. The phone rang 4 times before a young male voice answered. Grind Coffee. We're actually closed right now. Is Sarah Collins there? This is a family emergency. Sarah? No, she left around 3. Her shift ended. I need her home address. This is literally life or death. I can't give out employee information. Lisa's voice cracked. Someone is trying to kill her tonight. Please, I'm her aunt. Family emergency. A pause. Hold on. Lisa could hear muffled conversation in the background. Ma'am? Sarah's not answering her phone. We tried calling her. And honestly, you sound really upset. Maybe you should call the police? What's her address, please? I really can't. Then call her yourself. Right now, tell her to get out of her house immediately. Tell her someone named David Crane is coming for her. Lisa hung up and immediately called Agent Torres. Agent Torres, FBI. This is Lisa Brennan. I lied to you. David Crane is alive, and he's about to murder my daughter tonight in Portland, Oregon. Mrs. Brennan, where are you? Driving to Portland. Listen to me. My daughter is alive. Her name is Sarah Collins. She works at Grind Coffee downtown. David Crane placed her with an adoptive family 15 years ago after erasing her memories. She doesn't know who she is. Mrs. Brennan, you need to... He's been using her as leverage to keep me quiet. But now that I've talked to the FBI, he's going to eliminate the evidence. That means killing Sarah and her husband. Lisa could hear typing in the background. I'm contacting Portland field office right now, Torres said. Do you have an address? No, but she's pregnant, works at Grind Coffee. Married name is Collins. Agent Torres, he has people everywhere. People who've been watching her for years. Her friends, her neighbors, maybe even her doctors. What about David Crane? Where is he? Lisa's throat closed up. I don't know, but he's been tracking my location. He knew I was with you today. He might already be in Portland. Mrs. Brennan, I need you to turn around and come back to Jacksonville. Let us handle this. Like hell. Lisa hung up and immediately called the Grind Coffee number again. Grind Coffee. This is the woman who called about Sarah Collins. Did you reach her? Yeah, actually, she answered, but she said she doesn't have any aunts. She said if you call again, she's calling the police. Lisa's heart sank. Of course Sarah didn't believe her. In Sarah's mind, her parents had died in a car accident when she was young. She had no living relatives. Did you tell her about David Crane? I mentioned the name. She said she never heard of him. Because her memories had been erased. Professionally, thoroughly, probably through years of therapy that convinced her any traumatic memories were just nightmares from the car accident that killed her parents. Lisa's phone beeped with an incoming call. Unknown number. Hello? You should have kept your mouth shut, Lisa. David Crane's voice was different now. Cold. Final. Where is she? Safe, for now. But you forced my hand. The FBI is already calling Portland police. That kind of attention is bad for business. Let her go. This is between you and me. No, Lisa. This is about protecting an operation that's taken me 30 years to build. Sarah Collins was one of my greatest successes, a disturbed, violent child transformed into a productive member of society. But now she's become a liability. Lisa's speedometer hit 95. She's pregnant. You're talking about killing an innocent woman and her unborn child. I'm talking about cutting loose ends before they unravel everything. The line went quiet except for road noise. You have two choices, Lisa. Turn around right now, drive back to Florida. Convince the FBI you were having a breakdown. Tell them Sarah Collins is just a fantasy you created to cope with grief. Or what? Or Sarah dies tonight, and so do the 22 others. I have people positioned near all of them. One phone call from me, and every success story becomes a tragic accident. Lisa's vision blurred with tears and rage. You're bluffing. Tommy Rodriguez in Colorado just got home from his auto shop. He's working under the hood of his car right now, alone in his garage. It would be so easy for the jack to slip. Lisa's blood turned to ice. Jessica Park, the nurse in Seattle. She's working a night shift. 3rd floor of Mercy General. Terrible how many people fall down hospital stairwells during the busy overnight hours. Stop. I can make all 23 disappear tonight, Lisa. Permanently this time. Or you can save them by walking away. Lisa stared at the road ahead, mind racing. Every mile closer to Portland was another step toward Sarah's death and the deaths of 22 other innocent people. How do I know you won't kill them anyway? Because they're valuable assets. Killing them all would destroy decades of work. But if you force me to choose between protecting my operation and eliminating witnesses. Lisa pulled off at the next exit and sat in a truck stop parking lot, engine running, hands gripping the wheel. 23 lives in the balance, her daughter's life. 22 other stolen children who'd built families, careers, entire identities based on lies. If she kept driving to Portland, they all died. If she turned around, they lived, but remained trapped in their stolen lives forever. What's it going to be, Lisa? She closed her eyes and made the choice that would haunt her for the rest of her life. I'm turning around. Smart woman, call Agent Torres. Tell her you had a psychotic break. Tell her Sarah Collins was a delusion brought on by grief and stress. And then you disappear, sell your house, move somewhere far away, and never speak my name again. Lisa started to turn the car around, then stopped. David? Yes? I want proof of life. I want to see Sarah is okay before I make that call. You're not in a position to make demands. I'm not making demands. I'm making a trade. Proof that Sarah is alive and unharmed, and I'll convince the FBI to drop the investigation. A long pause. Check your phone in 10 minutes. The line went dead. Lisa sat in the truck stop parking lot, surrounded by the hum of interstate traffic and the smell of diesel fuel, waiting for proof that her daughter was still breathing. But as she waited, she realized something David Crane hadn't counted on. Agent Torres was competent, professional, and she'd already connected 17 missing children cases to David Crane's employment history. The FBI investigation wasn't going to stop just because one grieving mother claimed to be having a breakdown, which meant David Crane was going to realize very soon that letting Lisa live was a mistake. And when that happened, both mother and daughter were going to die anyway. Lisa's phone buzzed. Video message. Sarah Collins sitting in what looked like her living room, reading a book, one hand resting on her pregnant belly. Alive, unharmed, unaware that her entire world was built on lies. But in the background, barely visible in the reflection of a picture frame, Lisa could see someone else. A man holding a gun, standing just out of frame, waiting. Lisa put the car in drive and headed back toward the interstate, but instead of taking the southbound ramp back to Florida, she took the northbound ramp toward Portland. Because sometimes the only way to save someone is to walk straight into the trap. And sometimes a grieving mother is the most dangerous person in the world. Portland's downtown district was a maze of rain-slicked streets and coffee shops that stayed open past midnight for insomniacs and night shift workers. Lisa found Grind Coffee at 11:47 p.m., parked across the street, and watched through the windows as a young woman with Sophie's eyes cleaned espresso machines and stacked chairs on tables. Sarah Collins, 22 years old, pregnant, alive. Lisa's daughter, stolen and rebuilt into someone else's life. She'd driven 26 hours straight, surviving on gas station coffee and the kind of rage that burned steady for decades. Her phone had been buzzing with calls from Agent Torres, Sheriff Valdez, and 3 different FBI field offices, but she'd ignored them all. David Crane thought he held all the cards. He thought he could force Lisa to choose between saving one daughter or protecting 22 other victims. But he'd made one critical mistake. He'd told her where to find Sarah. Lisa got out of her Honda and walked across the street, hands shoved deep in her jacket pockets to hide the trembling. Through the coffee shop window, she could see Sarah moving with Sophie's careful precision, the same way she used to arrange her toys in perfect rows when she was 7. The door chimed as Lisa stepped inside. Sarah looked up from the register she was counting down. "I'm sorry, we're actually closed." She stopped mid-sentence, staring at Lisa's face with a confusion that might have been recognition fighting against 15 years of manufactured memories. Do I know you?" Lisa's throat closed up. She'd rehearsed this moment for 26 hours, but now that she was face to face with her daughter, every planned word evaporated. "You called here earlier," Sarah continued, voice uncertain. "About me? Said you were my aunt." "Sarah, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Your life is in danger." Sarah's hand moved instinctively to her pregnant belly. "I don't know who you are, but my name is Lisa Brennan. 22 years ago, I had a 7-year-old daughter named Sophie. She had your eyes, your smile, your way of tilting her head when she's thinking." Sarah backed toward the phone behind the counter. "You need to leave, now." Sophie disappeared from her school on May 15th, 1996, along with 7 other children and their teacher. Everyone thought they died in a bus accident, but they didn't. They were taken by a man named David Crane. I don't know anyone named David Crane. You wouldn't remember him. They erased your memories, made you believe your parents died in a car accident, made you believe you were adopted by loving strangers. Sarah's face had gone pale. "You're insane." "I have a birthmark on my left shoulder shaped like a crescent moon. You have the same birthmark in the same place. I have photos of you at age 6 with a gap between your front teeth. You still have a tiny scar on your right knee from when you fell off your bike, learning to ride it." Sarah's hand flew to her knee, an unconscious gesture that told Lisa everything she needed to know. "How do you—" "Because I'm your mother, Sophie, and David Crane is going to kill you tonight if we don't get out of here right now." Through the coffee shop window, Lisa spotted a figure moving across the street. Male, older, wearing a dark jacket. He paused under a streetlight just long enough for Lisa to see his face. David Crane. "Sarah, we have to go, now." I'm not going anywhere with you. I'm calling the police. Sarah reached for the phone, but Lisa grabbed her wrist. Look at me. Really look at me. Tell me you don't see something familiar. Sarah stared into Lisa's face, the face she'd inherited, aged by 15 years of grief, but still recognizably connected to her own features. I don't... The coffee shop door chimed. David Crane walked in, hands in his pockets, wearing the same patient smile Lisa remembered from parent-teacher conferences 22 years ago. Hello, Sarah. Hello, Lisa. Sarah looked between them, confusion turning to fear. Who are you? I'm an old friend of your mother's, Crane said, nodding toward Lisa. We have some business to finish. Lisa stepped protectively in front of Sarah. Let her go. This is between us. I'm afraid it's not that simple anymore. Crane pulled his right hand from his pocket, revealing a small pistol. You've involved the FBI, Lisa. That changes everything. Sarah pressed herself against the back counter. What do you want? Crane's smile widened. I want to fix a mistake I made 22 years ago. I should have eliminated the evidence then instead of repurposing it. Evidence? Sarah's voice cracked. You, my dear. You and 22 others like you. Witnesses to crimes that needed to stay buried. I thought I could transform you into useful members of society, give you better lives than the ones you would have had. Lisa's hands clenched into fists. You kidnapped children and sold them like livestock. I saved children from futures they didn't deserve. Do you know what Sophie Brennan was going to become, Lisa? A manipulative little sociopath who used her pretty face to get away with hurting other kids? She was 7 years old. She was already showing signs. The lying, the cruelty to smaller children, the way she played adults against each other. I prevented her from growing up to be another serial killer. Sarah's breathing had become rapid and shallow. This isn't real. This is some kind of breakdown or... Look at your reflection in that window, Sarah, Crane said gently. Now look at the woman standing next to you. Tell me you don't see the resemblance. Sarah turned toward the window. In the reflection, she could see herself standing next to Lisa, the same bone structure, the same curve of the jaw, the same dark eyes. No, she whispered. Your name is Sophie Brennan, Crane continued. You lived at 847 Sandpine Court in a small town in Florida. Your favorite color was purple. You had a stuffed rabbit named Mr. Buttons that you carried everywhere. Sarah's knees buckled. Lisa caught her before she fell. I can't. The memories are still there, Crane said. Buried, but not destroyed. I could bring them back if you wanted. Help you remember your real childhood. Lisa held Sarah tighter. Don't listen to him. Why not? Crane asked. Wouldn't you want to remember your real mother, Sarah? Wouldn't you want to know where you really came from? Sarah looked up at Lisa, tears streaming down her face. Are you really? I've been looking for you for 15 years, Lisa whispered. I never stopped believing you were alive. How touching, Crane said, raising the pistol. But this reunion is over. The gun was aimed at Sarah's chest. Lisa didn't think. She just moved. She shoved Sarah behind the counter and threw herself at David Crane, 22 years of rage propelling her forward like a missile. The gun went off. The bullet shattered the coffee shop window, spraying glass across the sidewalk. Lisa and Crane crashed into a display of coffee mugs, ceramic exploding around them. Lisa's hands clawed for his throat while he tried to bring the gun around. Sarah, run! Lisa screamed. But Sarah wasn't running. She was reaching under the counter, hands closing around the aluminum baseball bat the night shift kept for security. The bat connected with David Crane's skull with a sound like a melon dropping on concrete. Crane crumpled, the gun skittering across the floor. Lisa scrambled for it, checking the safety, keeping it trained on Crane's still form. Sarah stood over them both, bat still raised, breathing hard. Is he dead? Lisa checked for a pulse, weak but steady. No, but he's not going anywhere. Sarah lowered the bat, staring at the man who'd stolen her childhood. I remember him. Oh, God, I remember him. The memories were coming back in fragments. A classroom, other children crying, a teacher with kind eyes who tried to protect them. I remember you too, Sarah whispered, looking at Lisa. You used to sing to me when I had nightmares. Something about sunshine and rainbows? Lisa started crying then, 15 years of grief and hope and desperate love pouring out all at once. You are my sunshine, she sang softly, my only sunshine. Sarah's voice joined hers, tentative at first, then stronger. You make me happy when skies are gray. Outside, sirens wailed as Portland police responded to reports of gunshots downtown. But inside the coffee shop, a mother and daughter sang a lullaby that had survived kidnapping, memory erasure, and 15 years of separation. David Crane had stolen Sophie Brennan's childhood, but he hadn't been able to steal the bond between a mother and her child. That was something no amount of trauma therapy could ever truly erase. 3 months later, Lisa Brennan sat in a courtroom in Jacksonville, watching David Crane shuffle to the defendant's table in orange jumpsuit and shackles. He looked smaller now, older. The patient smile that had fooled parents and school boards for decades was gone, replaced by the hollow stare of a man whose empire had crumbled in a single night. The evidence from Cedar Ridge Storage had been devastating. 23 boxes of trophies, cassette recordings, and documentation of the most sophisticated child trafficking operation in FBI history. Agent Torres sat in the front row, thick case files stacked beside her. Over the past 3 months, her team had located 19 of the 23 stolen children, now adults living under false identities across the country. Not all of them wanted to be found. Tommy Rodriguez in Colorado had refused contact, insisting his adoptive parents were his real family and his memories of abuse were just childhood nightmares. Jessica Park, the nurse in Seattle, had suffered a complete psychological breakdown when investigators explained her true identity. She was still in a psychiatric facility, trying to reconcile 2 sets of memories that couldn't both be real. But others, like Sarah, had embraced the truth, had chosen to reclaim pieces of their stolen childhoods while building bridges to the families who'd never stopped searching. Sarah, she'd kept the name, said it felt more comfortable after 22 years, sat beside Lisa in the witness section, 8 months pregnant and glowing with the kind of happiness that came from finally knowing who she really was. Her husband, David, she'd kept him too, after months of couples therapy to work through the revelation that his wife's entire identity had been a lie, held her hand as the prosecutor began reading charges that would keep David Crane in prison until he died. Count 1, first-degree murder of Margaret Frost. Count 2, kidnapping of minors. Count 3, operating an illegal adoption ring. Count 4, conspiracy to traffic children across state lines. The list went on for 12 minutes. Crane pleaded guilty to everything. His lawyer had advised him that cooperation might earn him life in prison instead of the death penalty. When it was over, when the judge had sentenced David Crane to 7 consecutive life terms without possibility of parole, Lisa walked outside into Florida sunshine that felt warmer than it had in 15 years. Sheriff Tom Valdez was waiting by her car. "How you holding up?" he asked. Lisa looked back at the courthouse where justice had finally been served for Margaret Frost and 23 stolen children. "Better?" she said. "Finally, better?" Sarah waddled over, one hand supporting her back, the other resting on her belly. "Baby's kicking?" she said with a smile. "I think she knows it's over." Lisa placed her hand next to Sarah's, feeling her granddaughter's strong movements. "What are you going to name her?" Sarah considered for a moment. "I was thinking, Margaret, after Miss Frost. She saved us, you know. Even dying, she found a way to save us." Lisa's eyes filled with tears. She would have loved that. They drove home together to the house Sarah had bought 10 minutes from Sandpine Court, close enough for Sunday dinners, close enough for bedtime stories, close enough to rebuild what David Crane had tried to destroy. That evening, as Sarah's daughter performed gymnastics in the womb, Lisa rested her hand on her daughter's belly and sang the lullaby that had survived kidnapping, memory erasure, and 22 years of separation. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. Sarah joined in, her voice harmonizing with her mother's the way it had when she was 7 years old and the world still made sense. Some things Lisa had learned were stronger than trauma. Some bonds couldn't be broken no matter how hard evil men tried. And sometimes, if you never stop looking, love finds its way home, even after 22 years, even when everyone else has given up, even when hope is all you have left. Lisa Brennan had never stopped believing her daughter was alive, and she'd been right. That was enough. That was everything.